I'm a racing driver. I always was. Always will be. I would push the car to its limits, over and over and over. On the track, in the paddock, in the mechanic's shop. I'd modify it, improve it, and master it till I dropped on the floor with exhaustion. Let's start at the beginning.
Bruce McLaren was born on the 30th of August 1937 in Auckland, New Zealand. His father used to be a motorcycle racing enthusiast, but stopped after an injury and began racing at a local club instead. He also owned a workshop where Bruce spent all of his free hours hanging around the workshop and developing his passion for mechanics.
I remember my first actual race, and it was on a beach at a place called Muriwai in New Zealand, and I was about 16. In fact, I won it. I was, I think, more excited than I've ever been before in my life.
And he never stopped after that. He upgraded his car to a Ford, showing promise, and then upgraded to Formula 2, ultimately finishing runner-up in the New Zealand Championship Series twice. Due to his obvious potential, he was signed for Cooper in Formula 1, but drove a Formula 2 car on his debut. However, he impressed everyone by being first in his class and was 5th overall against the other drivers who had better cars, proving to everyone he belonged in Formula 1. Nevertheless, he would only race one more time that season, at the final round at Morocco. In the next year, he would finally race full-time. He would have a solid season, claiming a podium in the 5th round and winning the final round, becoming the youngest driver to ever win a race at the age of 22, a record that would remain for many more years to come. Overall, he finished 6th in the championship that season, although this was far from an accurate representation of his season as he suffered horrendous reliability issues mid-season whilst his teammate Jack Brabham went on to win the championship. The next year would be a closer fight, with Bruce winning the first race followed by a podium, whilst Brabham didn't claim any points in those rounds. Nevertheless, Brabham would go on a 5-race winning streak, ultimately beating Bruce by 9 points. It was obvious that McLaren was developing as a driver. One thing he especially loved was the mechanical aspect of the sport. He would constantly modify his cars and look for small ways to improve them. This would later set the foundation for his future endeavors. In the 1962 Monaco Grand Prix, Bruce emerged victorious and went on to secure an impressive 3rd place in the championship for that season. However, the following year would be very important. Unlike what many people think, McLaren, the team, was originally not made for Formula 1. Bruce McLaren's desire to participate in the Australasian Tasman Series led him to approach his team. However, when the team owner insisted on using 1.5-liter Formula 1 spec engines instead of the 2.5-liter motors allowed by the Tasman rules, Bruce made the decision to establish his own team. This was the right call as he won the series in his first ever year. Meanwhile, in Formula 1, McLaren continued to race and win in Coopers. However, the cars weren't fast enough to compete for the title, and he wanted a better team. In the end, he left Cooper at the end of the 1965 season and announced his own racing team. To say running the team was easy would be a complete lie. In the first round at Monaco, his team would make its debut. Unfortunately, his race ended quickly after just 9 laps due to a severe oil leak issue. The team faced challenges primarily due to their choice of engines as they utilized a Ford and an SSS V8. Although the SSS secured the team's first point in Britain, both engines proved to be underpowered and unreliable. This was a period of trial and error for the young driver. Often, he tested new concepts, added modifications, and changed parts. He was very engaged with the team. All who worked with him didn't consider him a boss, but rather a partner. While at first the team struggled, they later evolved and became more consistent. Heading into 1968, the goal was to win a race. Up to this point, he was the only driver to race for his team, but he would sign defending champion Denny Hulme for this year. Bruce wouldn't attend the first round and would retire from the second and third races, putting him at a huge disadvantage early on. The Belgian Grand Prix wouldn't start very good either. He qualified in 6th position, over 8 seconds behind the pole sitter Chris Amon. However, in the race, while Surtees and Jackie Ickx battled for the lead, Bruce would quietly make his way up the field. Midway through the race, Surtees retired due to mechanical failures, getting McLaren closer to the podium. His teammate was engaged in a fierce battle with Jackie Stewart, but he would later retire after a drive shaft failure, promoting Bruce to second place. At this point, Stewart was more than 30 seconds ahead of McLaren, so it looked like he would have to settle for a podium. However, on the final lap, Jackie Stewart ran out of fuel, promoting Bruce to first place, and when he crossed the line, he had won the race. While this normally wouldn't have been anything significant, he had been able to not only successfully create his own team, but also successfully win in it. Now that was an achievement. He would go on to drive a decent season, claiming 2 podium finishes. But while he claimed a respectable 5th position in the standings, his teammate would be in title contention up until the final round, only losing due to reliability issues. Was Bruce McLaren maybe not as skilled as people once thought? It was the 3rd time in which he had a title-winning capable car, but never really was in championship contention. However, he would shut up all of his critics the following year. The Canadian-American Racing Series was a very well-established and respected racing category at the time, with notable drivers such as John Surtees, Chris Amon, Jack Brabham, Pedro Rodriguez, Dan Gurney, Mario Andretti, and Joe Siffer all signing up for that season in 1969. However, one man would stand above them all, Bruce McLaren. He would develop a monster of a car and follow that up by absolutely destroying everyone that season, winning 6 out of the 11 races. His teammate would also finish runner-up, winning every single other race. In Formula 1, despite having an underpowered car, Bruce would finish a fine 3rd that year, a couple of positions ahead of his teammate, whilst being very consistent and claiming podium. Heading into 1970, Bruce was hoping to capitalize on the momentum and possibly challenge for the title. However, on round 1 at South Africa, he would retire, but he followed that up with a 2nd, but over 1 lap behind the winner. Then, at the subsequent race, he would once again be forced to retire after a suspension failure. Unfortunately, this would be his final Formula 1 race.
On the 2nd of June, 1970, my Can-Am car crashed on the Levant Straight just before Woodcote Corner at Goodwood Circuit in England. I was testing my new M8D when the rear bodywork came adrift at speed. I died, age 32. But what might be seen as a tragic end was in fact a beginning. As I always said, to do something well is so worthwhile that to die trying to do it better cannot be foolhardy. Indeed, life is not measured in years alone, but in achievement. So, on that beautiful summer day, on that racetrack, I did more than leave a name and a memory. Hopefully, I became an inspiration.